I'm here, very excited to be here with Aimee Ogden, who is one of the authors of The Reinvented Heart, which I foolishly did not put close to me. In fact, I've put it somewhere. Uh, and now your story is, God, now I put to memory. It's like no pain but memory.
No pain but that of memory.
No pain but that of memory. Okay, I'm sorry. I should have had that all written down. And the reason I'm so mortified is because to me, it is a story that just is a punch to the heart. I love this story of kind of for the dysfunctional family stuff, for the kind of the siblings allied, maybe not against, sort of allied, not allied, against a abusive parent. And I think it is a story that will resonate for so many people. And the story just has so much emotion in it. And so I wanted to ask if you consciously kind of worked to bring in that sort of emotion. And if you didn't, did it just sort of mysteriously appear, or can you attribute it to some particular factor?
I would say that, yeah, the emotional core of the story of growing up, not perhaps that difficult of a parent as these characters have, but of being alternately allied and vying with each other for a parent's affection is definitely a vibe that I'm familiar with, and a lot of that went into the story. And it's a lot, and I just love mess in stories, and family dynamics provide so much room for mess. And I really enjoyed cramming as much into this as I could.
Well, it is. You do. I mean, cram is a great word. I mean, not in a bad way, but you mean it's just it's a punch of a story. And I don't want to play favorites, but it is one of my favorites, I think, of the book. And in fact, I fired off a copy to my brother, and I was just like, tell me if this resonates as much for you. Oh, so you're having a really good year. You have a Nebula nomination. Tell us a little bit about that piece and kind of how that feels.
It feels pretty surreal still, and I have to look at that email that I got from the Nebula coordinator every now and then, just be like, yeah, this is still real. It's for a novella that came out last year called Sun Daughters, Sea Daughters, which also has a healthy amount of mess in it, and it's sort of a riff on The Little Mermaid in space mermaids, and it's after the original story ends, what if the Little Mermaid had to work with the witch to help her true love husband person. It is there's a pandemic in it. I wrote this 4 years ago or so. Oops. So anyone looking to read it might want to be forewarned that might not be what everyone wants to read right now. Legitimately.
Well, and that's I love that, because as an editor, I see so many retold fairy tales, and that takes it in a direction that I have not seen anybody go. So that is refreshing. And so how about the Lightspeed story that came out in January? Tell us about that, because that's a nice publication too.
Yeah, that was very exciting. Which one? That was what is that? Descent, a 5-course meal, I think. Yeah, that was a flash piece I wrote a couple years ago, I think. That I was trying to write something more experimental, and I ended up writing a menu story that shows a queer couple surviving with challenges, a time of severe civil suppression and unrest, and ends on a hopeful note, which I do tend to do with endings, I think. yeah, that was very exciting to come out. I was really excited to have that one out there.
So is that something that you do often, that sort of epistolatory form, the story masquerading as something else, or was that a first time dabbling with it?
I've done a couple of epistolary stories. I think mostly I end up in a more standard narrative, but it's fun to play with
Yes.
structures sometimes, and the menu was a really fun one. We do so I co-edited a magazine of fun and optimistic speculative fiction with my friend Bennett North, and we structure each table of contents like a menu.
Oh,
So
nice.
maybe that was a natural form to slide into for a short story.
I love that. Awesome. And so what are you working on right now?
Right now, I'm reading submissions for the August issue of Translunar Traveler's Lounge, which will be our 7th issue, which also feels surreal.
Nice.
And I'm trying to wrap up, start out as a short story, which I think it's going to be a novelette, and I really hope it's not a novella because I don't have time for that right now. Trying to a secondary world fantasy. We're going to say novelette. It's a novelette.
Okay. So that seems like a kind of sweet spot for you, although a flash piece and Lightspeed actually puts the lie to what I just said. But I mean, do you feel like you kind of like to be in that sort of novelette, shorter novella range, or?
I feel like I have not written very many novelettes. I feel like it's either flash or a novella, and short fiction. Usually if I write short, it's under 5,000 words, but this one's a hefty lad. It just wants to, it has a lot to say, and it just wants to keep going. I have written one of the novellas I've written that it has not found a home yet, that did start out as a short story and then a novelette and then a novella. So this does seem to be a thing that happens from time to time. Scope creep, I think, is the word from my software testing days. It's a little scope creep happening on those.
Yeah. I think my favorite piece of advice for that was at one point in one of my classes, Ann Leckie was teaching on space opera, and somebody was like, yeah, these characters creep in, and I'm just like, I want to take them on my own series. And she's like, well, you have to look at them and think, are they worthwhile? And if they're not, you have to kneecap them. And it was just like, what do you mean by that? And she's just like, you got to savagely take out those paragraphs that are giving them the legs. And I was just like, yeah, okay. But yeah, you do sometimes, or let them go. There's a lot of people that have huge universes, right, of letting characters take their voice. Awesome. Well, I thought perhaps I would close. Actually, I didn't give you any questions ahead of time, but it's not fair to spring like some surprise question on you. So, but actually I'm going to do it anyway. So if there was like one piece of relationship advice you wish you had been given earlier on in life, something that you learned later, what would you tell your teen self? It could be silly, it could be good, it could be profound.
Relationships are work, but it shouldn't be work that you don't want to do. It shouldn't be work that you resent doing. It should be work, but it should be work that you can, that you're like, yeah, I'm glad I'm doing this work. Kind of like writing often is. Maybe that's my relationship with writing. It's gonna be work, but like it feels like it's worth doing. It should feel like it's worth doing.
Awesome. I love that. I'm sorry for springing that on you. I didn't do that too.
Good question.
I can't connect to your Wi-Fi network.
I don't know why.
Setup instructions in the help section of your Alexa app.
We're not going to get into my complicated relationship with that particular machine. But I just want to say, I'm sorry for springing that on you. I didn't do that to Jane Yolen. And now I'm like, I will remember to send that out to people ahead of time because I love it, right? Okay, well, I'm going to close things down. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And thank you for sending in just such a freaking excellent sledgehammer of a story. Just awesome.
I'm so excited to be part of this anthology.
Excellent. All right.